Hey guys, my name is Robin MacFarlane, and I want to spend a couple minutes today talking to you about puppy biting. In my Puppy Preschool program, it is one of our most common topics. When people reach out to me for help, this is probably the number one problem that they're concerned about is how do I stop the puppy biting? But one of the things that I need people to understand, if I'm going to answer that question, is we've got to be able to decide what sort of biting are we talking about. Puppies are going to explore everything with their mouth. That is very normal. They pick up things they shouldn't, they're chewing on things they shouldn't, they're biting on their toys, which is a great behavior and we want more of that. But oftentimes when we're playing with them, they start to bite on our fingers and hands instead. And that's where I go, okay, that's what I'm going to call play biting. There's puppy biting that is play. All right, and that is something that we're going to distract our puppies with. We use toys for distraction. If the puppy is not taking the bait and they're not being distracted, then I can show you some interventions. And I have a little maneuver I call the straitjacket hold that we use as a consequence for excessive play biting. And that works really well and it teaches the puppy to settle and then we redirect to a toy again. But the bigger concern I have is if we are mistaking play biting for something that is actually fear biting or defensive biting, that's where we have to take an entirely different strategy. With fear biting or defensive biting, we're not going to have a consequence of some sort of correction for that because it's going to make it worse. So for instance, what would fear biting be? That's going to be the puppy that you go to reach for them and they duck behind the owner or something like that because they're afraid of strangers. Okay, so you can't correct that. That's not going to make it better. What we have to do is do some work to counter condition that. We have to create pleasant associations with being touched, being picked up. When a stranger goes to reach for the puppy, we want them to know that it's a good thing. And there are sequential steps that we can work through that teach the puppy how to build trust. And so they can become that social dog that eventually is far more tolerant of being touched and addressed by strangers. So that's completely different. This fear biting versus play biting, two different things. We're dealing with it two different ways, okay? And then there's a third thing that I want to make sure we identify, and this is where I call it resistance biting. So what is resistance biting? Resistance is when the puppy, we're doing something to the puppy that they are not used to, but they don't like it. So for instance, we're trying to brush them, and they're biting at the brush and they're biting at your fingers. That isn't because they necessarily want to play with the brush. More often than not, it's because the brush feels a little bit uncomfortable and they're trying to stop you from doing what you need to do. And there are different strategies to deal with that. Sometimes the food as a distraction works very well, and that is going to be my go-to maneuver. But there are puppies that will have none of it and they're going to get a little bit more defensive. They start to kind of tip back toward this defense and they're learning that if I resist by using my teeth and and biting at you, then you will go, oh well, okay, I'm not going to brush you today because you don't like it. Now that's a big problem. It's a big problem. Can you imagine if we raised children that way and we said, well, he doesn't like having his teeth brushed today, so we're not going to worry about it. Because he threw a little bit of a temper tantrum, we're just going to stop. Well, I think we all know that what we get then is more temper tantrum or more resistance. Okay? So we have to learn how to work through resistance. And that is going to come through a combination of techniques. We're going to use some distraction. When distraction's not working, we're going to use some restraint. And this is such an important piece of what I'm trying to teach in my preschool program is when do you decipher the difference and how do you use the different techniques? Because overall, what you're trying to develop is a puppy that grows into an adult dog that is tolerant. Tolerant of being brushed, tolerant of getting nail trims, tolerant of being handled by their veterinarian or their groomer, okay? So we learn how to work through the resistance. We want a puppy that grows up not afraid of everything, not fearful of every new encounter. So instead of using their teeth to defend themselves because they're afraid, They're using their nose to explore. They're being confident to reach out and to inquire with new things. And eventually they learn, hey, it's fun to do new things, fun to meet new people. So they get over the fear and they start to become a more social dog. And then of course we also want a puppy that's going to grow into a dog that learns how to play with their toys, put the teeth on the toys, chew on the chew toys, not on our skin, not on our pant legs. So this is kind of a comprehensive discussion of the puppy biting. This is my overview, so you can start to think about how these pieces are separate from one another. And if you're currently raising a puppy that is somewhere from, you get them at 7 or 8 weeks of age up to 16 weeks of age, do yourself a favor, enroll in my Puppy Preschool program, learn the difference, learn how to deal with these different varieties of puppy biting stages.